Welcome to the LZ Sports Show. I am your host, Mark Adam, WPG Sports Coordinator here in the WPG Sports headquarters, which is, of course, my basement because that's how everything is done these days. We're all working from home. We're all trying to make it work from home. And I am joined by a panel of guys today. But before we get to who is with me, let's just mention real quick that you should follow us on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Smash that like button. We really greatly appreciate that. It goes a long way for us. Doesn't mean much to you. Costs you nothing. And speaking of costs, completely free to watch. This is content we're creating out of passion, out of love for the game, for the sports, for the camaraderie that it brings. But if you feel like supporting us, head to streamlabs.com/thewpg magazine, and anything that you donate through that, half of which we are going to give to local charities. The other half we're going to use to try and keep this thing going. So go ahead and head over to streamlabs.com/thewpg magazine and feel good about your support, because we're going to keep going, and we're going to try and help support local charities. Also, while we're at it, I'll throw out there, call or text the WPG Sports Line, 431-800-4555, or you can email the LZ at thewpg.ca. We would love to hear from you. Anybody looking to advertise on the show, go right ahead, 431-489-2401. Give us a call or email ads at thewpg.ca. Let's get all that out of the way. And now let's go. Who else is with me? Keith McKnight, all the way from his humble abode. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. We also have another fella locally from his own home. Who's that? That's going to be Kerry Bilkowski, right?
Yeah.
Howdy.
Yeah, musician and photographer in town. Also, sports enthusiast. So welcome to the show, Mr. Bilkowski. We're glad to have you, as usual. And this guy needs no introduction, mostly because he's trying to stay anonymous out there. This is Neutral Zoner, Redditor and friend of the LZ Sports Show. How are you today, sir?
Doing really well, thank you.
Excellent. I would like to point out that we do have this fancy chat box that you can fill with your thoughts. We very often get a lot of people chatting along with us. It really fleshes out the show. It brings up some stuff that maybe sometimes you wouldn't think of on the fly. So feel free to fill up that box. We would love to hear from you. Whether you're on Facebook watching live, whether you're on YouTube watching live, or Twitch, the chat box should populate with, if you comment on Facebook, it should pop up here if you comment right on the video. So all that out of the way, gentlemen, why don't we, I don't know what happened to Zoner's lower third name there. I can fix that, but we're not going to deal with that today. What we're going to do is we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back in 30 seconds before we talk about all of the amazing stuff that happened last night with the Jets in Edmonton. So we'll be back after this.
Make your house a better place to come home to with Aqua-Tech Pool, Spa, and Bath. We've been delivering complete customer satisfaction for over 40 years. Whether it's a fully completed backyard escape, a completely renovated bathroom, or a premium upgrade on outdoor furniture, Aqua-Tech is the only name you need to know. That's because if it's an Aqua-Tech job, it's an Aqua-Tech team working on it. No outsourcing, no subcontractors. We do it all. Visit our one-of-a-kind showroom today at 1065 Dugald Road. Aqua-Tech Pool, Spa, and Bath. We create better places to come home to.
And we are back. That graphic just doesn't want to fix itself, so it's fine. We'll just make it all go away. So, last night, let's get right to it. Let's look at the graphics we've got here, the game stats from last night. Oh, so wonderful seeing the big goose egg on that Oilers side, keeping McDrysaddle quiet all night. 1-0 for the Jets there. 36 shots for the Jets to the Oilers 38. A very offensive affair, shall we say. In the face-off circle, the Jets lose 43% to 57%, which is good. I mean, every time they've had amazing wins during the regular season, they have lost in the face-off circle. I still don't get the correlation, the causality there, but whatever. Both teams go 0-4 on the power play. So 0 for 2 for the Jets, 0 for 3 for the Oilers, and 52 hits, quite a few less than the previous game for the Jets anyway. And then the Oilers 37 hits. Pretty decent number there, but still that's still not the 68 we saw in the previous game. Going to the score sheet, Paul Stastny, overtime hero, playing in his 99th playoff game in his career, and he pots the overtime winner from Kopp and Pullman. Kopp and Pullman both playing great hockey as of late. The secondary scoring for the Jets has been awesome. Hellebuck 38 for 38 on the saves, so 100% save percentage. That's the big 1.000. I love seeing that up there for him. The Oilers, big old blank slate on that one side. Mike Smith played an amazing game, but still managed the loss. 35 saves on 36 shots. He was unbelievable, but it took a fluky, weird play for that goal to get scored. So it just happens sometimes. Next game, May 23rd for these folks back here in Winnipeg. So, gentlemen, shall we discuss this is crazy. Everybody had basically all but counted Winnipeg out, and now they're up 2-0 on the
coming back
right
home.
Coming back home. How wonderful is that? I don't have the words. Gentlemen, have you got the words? Tell me. I want to know. Let's start with Keith. First of all, pick a player. Who was a player for you that stood out, that was just there was a lot to pick from last night, so we'll give it to you. Who would you choose?
I'm going to go with Mark Scheifele, my favorite player on this team. No. I know that. But yes, we're not going to get into the comment about him trading out of town, but we did say, I was mentioning to the three of you gentlemen that, it was a big solid team effort yesterday. So yeah, my pick is Mark Scheifele.
All right, fair enough. And Mr. Bilkowski, who do you got out there? We'll come back to Mr. Bilkowski, who seems to be frozen. We'll throw it to you, Zoner. Zoner, who you got?
As Keith mentioned, it was a great team defensive effort, and one of the defensemen who really stood out to me was Derek Forbort. Throughout the year, especially as the year went on, he made me nervous every time he was out on the ice. But last night, wow, he was doing all the right things. Positionally, he was doing good. He stared down McDavid one-on-one a few times and used his reach to poke check, get the puck off of him, or at least deflect whatever pass or shot he's trying to attempt. Forbort did really well. A+ game for him.
Yeah, I agree. That went really well for him. So, Bilkowski, I see that you're back and moving again. You're not just a photo of yourself. So why don't you tell us who your player was?
Oh man, honestly, so many awesome performances to choose from. I was thinking about Kyle Connor, who had 7 shots, including a couple really strong attempts. But ultimately, I think this game was won by our defense, and I think you got to give credit to Dylan DeMello, who, he had 20 minutes of playing time. He had a couple of blocked shots, but most importantly, he got his hands up in that desperation sort of goal-saving, hands in the air, and he sacrificed a really hard shot onto his wrist and probably saved the game in that moment. So, yeah, Dylan DeMello, he really he stepped up.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hand to God. Anyway, I thought Hellebuck was the guy, and I think he's the obvious choice for everyone. So I really think, somebody had to say his name, and I called dibs before the show, so that's how that worked out. But it's so easy to say Hellebuck today, so easy. He played amazing, obviously with the shutout, but there were some, the first period, not as much. He wasn't as dominant as we've seen, because they're just the defense was so good that the chances weren't awesome. But that second and third period started to get a little more wide open, and as that happened, that's when you saw Hellebuck step up to the plate. So when the Jets defense in the second period had a little lull, they did not have a collapse. When we'll get to that. But they had that little lull in the second period, and things got a little wider open. All of a sudden, you saw Hellebuck just change gears. It was a great thing to see, and there's a reason he's a Vezina Trophy winner. So I think that speaks for itself. We got a comment in the chat from Simon Leung. I say whichever D-man that happened to be on the McDavid Draisaitl shut down for a second consecutive game. Honestly, the entire team, right? Would you say?
Yes.
Right?
We saw some strong D. Obviously, Forbert kind of was the big apparent one. He was driving McDavid to the outside on every single sort of attempt they had. Also, Logan Stanley, he had one little sort of shiver move against Draisaitl as he was entering the zone, and he just put him into the boards and completely shut down that opportunity.
Yeah.
It's great to see. You love to see.
And there was a couple of times where, the Oilers would come in to try and hit the Jets, and the Jets would just bounce off and fall. And there was one time in particular, right in front of the bench, you see somebody trying to throw a hit and just ended up on their back, and the whole Jets bench just laughing at that guy. It was amazing. I loved it.
That guy was number 97.
I wanted to point that out, but I didn't want to be too mean. I mean, I don't want to get this guy charged up because when he is on, he is on. But I mean, that team defense last night, every forward, every defenseman, everybody was playing the way that we need them to win a championship. If they hold out playing this way, which I think is completely sustainable the way they were doing it, do we think there might be a championship? Like, is there how much more hope do you have? Let's start with Bilkowski. How much more hope do you have now that you've watched these two games? What are our chances of winning the cup? We're getting ahead of ourselves, but I want to
ask. We are getting ahead of ourselves. I think we have a chance. I think the way we were written off by a lot of the media and a lot of the fans out there in this series, and the way we've completely sort of shut everyone up, it's a way too early to say, and there's going to be some really big teams between here and hoisting Lord Stanley's. But you know what? We can. There's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance.
I think there's a pretty decent chance, to be honest. We have a really charged up squad. They slumped at a bad time, but they started their recovery run a little later than I'd like, but at a pretty decent time, and they're hitting their full stride right now. Keith, thoughts? What are our odds?
Yes, I like Mr. As he said, shut everyone up, myself included.
Fair enough.
It's insane. Like, this team, it's just the truth. Like, honestly, I wrote them off, and I was just like, they beat the best team, like the best team in the division. Like, they took care of them twice, and coming back home up 2-0. Like, losing home ice advantage is a really bad thing in any sport. I mean, home arena advantage, court, field, ice, whatever it may be. Like, if you give up games at home in the playoffs, that's not a good look for anybody. And the Oilers are going to have to dig really deep because the Jets can win at home. The record already proves for that, and they like to play here. They beat the best teams here, and so, yeah, it's like I said, I'm one of those individuals who got shut up very quickly.
Fair enough. So, Zoner, thoughts?
I was just going to follow up on Keith's comment about home ice advantage. Like, this is the year of COVID. Remember, everything's backwards. If anything, the Jets have lost have maintained their road advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, they have.
They've maintained road court advantage. Like, you got to keep those. I don't know what's going to happen the 2 games in Winnipeg, like the way the whole season has gone. But yeah, I'm super excited how first 2 games have gone, and yeah, I didn't see this coming. I would have been ecstatic with a split.
Honestly, I think a lot of people would have been. And Simon Leung making a great point about the defense there. I love how it seemed we managed to get our stick on their puck whenever they had it. Absolutely, those cross-ice passes and things like that, they just happen so, just right in the stick zone. Just every time the puck came across, there was a Winnipeg stick poking it away. Even Hellebuck got in on it when Draisaitl knocked that puck down and was coming across. That poke check was insane, and Like every Winnipeg Jet was getting their stick on Edmonton pucks. It was great. So yeah, good point there, Simon. Appreciate that. In the chat, you too can throw your comments in the chat wherever you're watching, whether that be on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. So we'd love to hear from you as we go. We got the birds going today. It's Mr. Zoner sitting outside, I guess.
Yeah, I heard that. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm on my deck. Yeah,
man.
This is how it sounds like after every Jets
The
win.
nature of hockey.
The nature of hockey.
For any Oilers fans watching, this is what life goes on. There are birds in Edmonton too. They just don't sound as happy.
No,
today,
you're right. They don't. Good one. I like it. But the speaking of the team, like, it wasn't just the defense. It was the entire team was just on. You said last night, well, in our group chat there, Zoner, everybody bought in. Everybody was dialed in. So expand on that, sir.
You mentioned earlier that like the Jets had the slide at the absolute worst time, and there's an old saying in life that you learn more from your failures than from your successes. Perhaps that 7-game losing streak was exactly what they needed to maybe in a way humble themselves and actually buy into whatever Maurice and the coaching staff are trying to get them to do. Some of that might have been sacrificing shift time, right? And some of that might have been making sure forwards paying attention to the details on the defensive side of the ice. They're right now, the coaching staff's getting a lot of credit on Reddit for out-coaching the Oilers side of the bench. And if you look at the details, it's very evident that you see forwards pressuring the first guy who's the first Oiler who's got the puck, trying to make that breakout pass, trying to block angles, trying to tip it, trying to make it like an ugly pass. They've got someone right on McDreisaitl. One of the at least on McDavid, they can't stop him, but at least they can make him go around him, so it's not a direct straight beeline to open ice.
Absolutely.
And then that gives the defense time to set up. And so that reminds me of an old basketball commentator who he was asked, how do you stop the LA Lakers way back in the Showtime era with Magic Johnson and James Worthy and Byron Scott? And he says, delay, 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 which is three zones of delaying, right? Puck carrier or the ball carrier. You got to slow down the target, and then it gives your defense time to set up. So that's the 3 zones. And the Jets did that all night.
They did.
There's incredible defense, incredible discipline, which they never had all year. They finally put it together for 2 straight games.
Yeah.
If I can piggyback on that a little bit, just talking about delay. We definitely saw that last night. We saw our forwards getting up in the zone and forechecking and chasing the puck. We saw it at our blue line, denying entries and absolutely frustrating the Oilers. And then we saw it in our zone, pushing McDavid off to the side, winning those battles against the boards behind our own net, and getting the puck and just frustrating them over and over and over again. And, are we the better team? Are we the higher skilled team? It's debatable. We have a lot of depth, but we certainly are outplaying them right now. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Just want to throw it into the chat there. Kojackal is joining us on Twitch. Says, LZ, you're the best. Thank you, man. You're the best. Anybody watching right now is the best. Loving it. So I don't know what that sound is. That's somebody clapping or something. I don't know. Someone giving us applause in the background of someone's shot, but I love it. Everybody, it was just dialed in, as you guys were just saying. And the big thing that we also decided was a big deal was that no second period collapse. Keith, how big was that? How much of a difference did that make versus that first game where that second period was not a great period for the Jets? And then last night, there was a little bit of a lull. There was a little bit of more open space in that second period than the first, but it was much better overall. What did you think of that?
Yes, it was. And when you did have that collapse yesterday, it showed that they didn't let the Oilers, because I knew the Oilers were going to, not knew, who am I? I have no crystal ball, but it just felt that the Oilers didn't want to let the Jets run away with it. So regardless that the Jets, there was no second period collapse there for the Jets. So they kept themselves in the game heading into the third. And were able to stretch this game out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just watching them be better in the second period was so nice. It was just such a relief, and still no goals for the Jets in that second period, but man, did they like that when you can beat a team as highly offensively powered as Edmonton by keeping them to a 0 goal scoring line. That's you can't ask more from your team. You just can't. Everybody was on it, and I mean, that said, they only got the one goal. It was a battle of the goaltenders last night. It was an absolute fight to the death between Mike Smith and Connor Hellebuck. And Connor Hellebuck ended up winning out, but it could just as easily have gone the other way. Mike Smith was fantastic last night. How good was he? Let's start with Kerry Bilkowski. And are we scared, by the way, about the future games if he plays like that again? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Smith was incredible. He put up a regulation shutout yesterday, and that should be enough to win hockey games, especially when you have, two of the top scorers in the league on your team. You're supposed to be able to lean on your goalie, and then they steal a game and you win it. But, Mike Smith did everything in his power to steal the game. And the goal he did let in, you could call it a sniper, you could call it a fluke, but it just happened that it was a picked corner and a screen and, not a goal that I would blame any goalie for missing. He's been standing on his head, and it's scary. If we do see Edmonton's offense get rolling at any point, it'll be a different story. But for now, he can make all the saves in the world. It's not going to help if his forwards aren't doing anything for him.
Zoner, you want to expand on that at all, or?
I was just thinking that Kyle Connors probably seeing him in his sleep, because Connors had so many A+ chances last night, right in front of the doorstep. He did he had the rebound, he couldn't lift it over the pad.
Oh man, and he had so much time.
Yeah.
If he realized he had that extra second, he could have stopped and really got that puck up and over that pad, but he was rushing, thinking that. Because let's be fair, there were a couple of really bad Edmonton defensive meltdowns last night, and Mike Smith bailed them out.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, ad?
Yeah,
sorry. Were you done? Was it?
No,
okay,
I'm done.
Sorry.
I'm done.
Let's throw it to Keith.
Yeah, no, definitely bailed them out. Played a very, very, very impressive game for the Edmonton Oilers. Showed that he really wants to be there in the playoffs for them. But nonetheless, the Jets came out on top of this one. So he hopefully, like you said, the battle of the goaltenders. You can't pinpoint it any better than that, Mark.
Right. And from the chat, by the way, we have Gerald Antonishin. Pardon the pronunciation. We have Gerald. Gerald, I can pronounce Gerald. So Gerald is in the chat, and he's saying, hopefully Appleton keeps crashing the net to get into Smith's head. I agree wholeheartedly. I think that that's a big deal. Getting in Mike Smith's head is important. And hopefully, and if they just keep pounding at him, eventually he's going to give. I mean, he's an older guy. No offense to his age at all. I'm almost the same age. So I get how he feels, and I don't know how he could compete at that level, given how I feel. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But at that age, I'm really impressed with the way he plays. But I mean, getting into his head is going to be harder than getting into some rookie's head that's never been around. This guy's been around for a long time. He's seen it all. Nothing is surprising to him, and now we've just got to kind of work at it, right? So.
Well, if I can elaborate on that a little bit, the way Mason Appleton has been crashing the net has been fantastic. It's been frustrating Smith, and it's been frustrating Edmonton's defense. You see every time Appleton has any sort of chance in front, it ends up in a big scrum and everyone's face washing and sort of, ends up in this sort of fracas that is ultimately it's frustrating Edmonton. And you see, you know, our guys like Perreault, who's just he's kind of been playing the role of the pest in this series, and it's fantastic for us because it's taking Edmonton out of the game. It's getting them focused on the wrong things. You know, they're putting all their attention onto Perreault and onto Appleton, and they're not focusing on scoring, or they're not focusing on the things that are going to win the hockey games. So absolutely, I think if Appleton keeps this sort of new Mason Appleton that we've seen this season of being more of a power forward, of crashing the net, of being physical, then it's just going to be great things for him and the organization.
I agree. And on the Mason Appleton point, I pointed out last night in our group chat, like, every time there's a scrum, Mason Appleton is involved. He's involved in more scrums than anybody else on the entire ice. And it comes down to what you just said about him really crashing the net, really getting under the Edmonton Oilers' skin, really irritating Mike Smith, which in turn obviously turns around and irritates the Edmonton Oilers forwards, or defensive core, sorry. And then you got all these like scrums and stuff, and people just getting really, and the Jets are just living rent free in the Oilers' heads right now. So that is amazing. That is amazing. One question here: what do we do with Ehlers now? I'm going to throw this to Zoner first.
I think we bought ourselves a free game, right? Let him rest one more game. We're up 2 in the series. That way he becomes the conquering, if we lose game 3, God forbid, but he comes back as the conquering hero in game 4, right? Like there's no rush to bring him back anymore. Like we're up.
Yeah.
We can let him heal up a little longer. It's the team's winning. Don't mess it up right now.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Unless he is as good as he's going to get, unless he's 100% healed, as much as he's going to be for the rest of this year, sit him out. Let him rest. Give him that time. As you mentioned, like, we've stolen home ice advantage, right? We went and won both of those games in Edmonton. Now the challenge is, because the Jets' record against Edmonton in their home rink this year was, I'm going to say, not good. And what I mean was atrocious. So the challenge now is, can they repeat at home? And I don't know. It's going to be sketchy. Keith, do you think that they can take that energy, and do you think they're going to have the same success when they come back here to Winnipeg, given that generally their home ice advantage has not been an advantage?
Honestly, I think the Jets are going to take game number 3. Yes, I do. And the way that they're playing, their confidence level, and they're not intimidated by this Edmonton team, right? It kind of showed that during the regular season they kind of were, but right now they're not playing that type of hockey. So I honestly feel that the Jets, like the Oilers, have a lot of work to do here.
You are very right. They absolutely do. So yeah, I mean, Carey, do you think we rest him? Do we play him? What are your thoughts about Ehlers vis-a-vis being in the lineup?
I have a hard time keeping a healthy Nick Ehlers on the bench. If he is ready to go, our good buddy Dom Tomato, he's been excellent as a depth player that's come in and filled a role when we've needed him. He's had some hits, he's had some block shots, he's had some excellent puck control. But Nick Ehlers is a guy who can go out and play 25 minutes and completely change a game. He can enter zones like very few people. He can set up scoring plays. He can score. If we have a healthy Nick Ehlers, he should be in the game. No question about it to me.
I would have to agree with you. I mean, if he's healthy, play him. But he had better be as good as he's going to get. If he's like 98% to where he's going to be, rest him. And then have 100% Nick Ehlers in game 4.
Yeah.
That's the way I think of it.
I think him like our nuclear option, right? So when the Oilers want to hit the nuclear button, they did it already. Like they played Draisaitl and McDavid together all night. Draisaitl played half the game, right? They basically played 5 guys together for half the game, right? Barry, Nurse, Draisaitl, McDavid, and almost Puyarvi. He almost played half the game, right? So that they already pressed the nuclear button and didn't work.
And
we still have our nuclear button waiting, right? Like once Ehlers comes,
right, that's a whole
boom.
other.
So,
Now, are you worried
Yeah.
that that's going to change the dynamic? Are we worried that Ehlers stepping in is going to hurt us in any way, given that he's been out of the lineup for a while? He hasn't been practicing with the team with any sort of contact or anything like that. Is that a concern? Where are we on that, Kerry?
Ehlers yesterday in the pregame skate was wearing a full contact jersey, which is very encouraging. Absolutely. Yeah, I think ultimately it's again, it comes down to if he's ready or not. If I can kind of just take a little bit of a sidebar here and just talk about the nuclear option as we were talking about. Having McDavid and Draisaitl on one line was Edmonton's sort of like, hit the button, let's try something here. I don't know that they have a lot of sort of taxi squad or black aces depth necessarily if they can sort of shake things up. If for example, Winnipeg had come out and lost the first couple of games, we have some choices we could make. We could bring in Harkins or Vesalainen, or we could bring in a Jamie Benn or something like that to shake it up. Sorry, Jordy Benn.
I do that all the time. I get the Bens mixed up all the time. I apologize to Jordy, less so to Ben because he's not a Jet, but I'm sorry, Jordy. I keep calling you Jamie, and I don't know why. It makes no sense.
But what is Edmonton going to do on their end? Who do they put in? What line combination do they try that they haven't already tried and failed in this series?
That's a very good point. I love that, not only because it was pretty early on when they decided, okay, this isn't working. Draisaitl, McDavid, get out there together. I think was it the first period it happened in? I feel like it was. I can't remember when I noticed.
Last night.
Yeah.
Last night was starting opening whistle.
Was it really?
They started the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they were out there from very early on, aka at the beginning of the game, as it turns out. And I don't know why I didn't check their lines. I just assumed they would have them separated again because they did in the previous game. But yeah, watching them struggle, man. If you're the Edmonton Oilers right now, you're looking at the Jets and going, "What the hell, man? Like, how do you get around a team that plays that big of a shutdown game? If you can shut down 2 games in a row, the 2 most devastating scorers in the league this year, then like you guys are saying, what is your next option? You like, there's no nuclear option for you. You've pressed the button and they're still coming at you. So what can they do? Keith, you've been quiet for a bit. What's going on in your head? What are the Jets? How bad are the Jets inside the Oilers' heads right now?
Oh, absolutely crazy, Irie. It's like we made a little bit of basketball analogies. It's almost that, like, you got a defender coming to close out your shot and he actually makes you alter your shot, and then that's in your head for like the rest of the game. Like, the Oilers are definitely having the Winnipeg Jets in their head. If they're not worried, well, then I don't know what else it takes. Like, their back should be against the wall. You're down 2-0 in a playoff game. You lost home ice advantage. You have a roster that on paper that everybody in the NHL is intimidated by. And even, like, we've connected with numerous people. There were 2 individuals who were fans of the show. I can't remember exactly their social media names, but they were like asking me, "Oh, let's look at the stats. Do Connor McDavid and Leon McDraisaitl have any of those 4 points?" And they both had contributed to all 4 of those points. And then, like, that was the end of that conversation. So when you have that type of, production from them during the regular season, and now they can't produce that in the postseason, well, hey man, like, let the Jets jump all over that.
And now it's important to point out too that the Jets are running on secondary scoring right now. Like, they're big goal scorers, Connor, Scheifele, generally Wheeler, they're not getting the points. CSW line is not getting anywhere as far as points production is concerned. They're causing all kinds of havoc in this series, but the people getting the points are those grinding fourth liners. You know, when we saw Thompson with 2 assists, Pullman scoring, Toninato coming out of nowhere and scoring, you know, that's what we're seeing from the Jets. But we're not seeing any of that secondary action from the Oilers. And I think when you go an entire season with only 2 guys getting basically all of your points, and again, just how many points are they getting? Connor McDavid, again, if you take away all of his goals that he scored in the entire regular season, on assists alone, he's the second highest points getter in the league behind Leon Draisaitl. So those 2 guys were their team. Everyone else was helping out in a support role only, and nobody was really producing. Puljujärvi is probably the best Edmonton Oiler out there on last 2 nights, but I mean, you got to be frustrated if you're the Edmonton Oilers, if those are your 2 guys and they're being absolutely shut down. Where's everybody else? That's what I'm asking if I'm the coach. Where is everyone else? Step up. Carey, you sound like you got something to say.
Can I point out one little stat I was reading today?
Sure.
Tucker Poolman has twice as many points as McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Puljujärvi combined in this series.
What's that? 2 points?
Yeah, it's 2 points. But it's still twice as many as their top 4 combined.
That's a big deal.
And when that's Tucker Poolman, the guy who didn't put up a goal this season, that's exciting stuff. That means our depth is working and their top guys aren't.
And it really exposes the lack of depth. The superstar power that they have in McDraisaitl, that combination, is absolutely muted. If you can shut those 2 guys down, the rest of their team has nothing. I shouldn't say nothing. Connor Hellebuck really did a lot of work there. But at the end of the day, those 2 guys are the guys. And the Jets have proven, if you can take them out, that's going to be problematic for everyone involved. So let's jump to the chat box real quick. That's not the right screen. There you go. Simon Leung chiming in saying the next 2 games are back-to-back. I think it's to our advantage with our depth, exactly as we've been talking about. Our depth is a huge advantage. Simon Leung also says, yesterday, only Morrissey played over 24 minutes. Forbert barely over 23. On the other hand, yeah, they were McDraisaitl, Barry, Nurse, all over 26, and Draisaitl played 30. So yeah, we're burning out their best players. They're not going to be able to do that in a back-to-back scenario, as you pointed out. So that's a big one. That's a big one. Thank you for pointing that out and joining us in the chat, Simon. We really appreciate that. Gentlemen, comments on what Simon just said about the back-to-back. How big of an advantage do we think that's actually going to be for us? Let's start with Keith right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge advantage for us. Exactly. So, having those guys, like, we're able to shut those 2 superstars down. And I mean, who else is going to really produce other than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Carey, anything on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out in regards to Darnell Nurse, who had over 30 minutes, I think, in the last game. 32 minutes, 53 is what I'm seeing here. He looked like the best chance the Oilers had last night. You know, he was the one sort of making these offensive moves, which is you know, pretty impressive for a defender. He is an offensive defender, but he's had a breakout season this year. But you can't play anyone 30 plus minutes a game and expect that to be sustainable. So I think you're going to see him, and you're going to see Barry, and you're going to see the big guys all slowing down as we get through the end of this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about all of the positives and how, you know, kind of scared the Oilers are, and we're not going to get into how terribly biased the Sportsnet broadcast was towards the Oilers last night, because that was disgustingly so. But that said, can we just where are the concerns for the Jets right now? What is the biggest thing the Jets need to be worried about after the two games we just saw? Let's start with Zoner. Is there something that sticks out to you that just needs to be fixed or tweaked, or something that we're hoping doesn't get exposed because it can't be fixed or tweaked? What do you think, Zoner? Go ahead.
I think number one is that both games are really close, right? And one bounce either way could have changed the outcome of either game. So yes, the series up 2-0, but they're very, very close 2 games. And if I was an Oilers fan, you hit the nuclear button once and didn't work, but who says it won't work next game? Like it was an overtime game. It was a shot between 2 legs. So that could easily happen the other way. The Oilers are generating a lot of great chances. There were so many highlight reel saves just from last night's game with Hellebuck doing the splits and doing some insane yoga moves. And we already talked about the hand of DeMello flipped up to block that shot. Like we escaped with, we escaped full marks for that. But it was not a rout. It wasn't an easy win.
Oh,
it just takes increased discipline and dedication. Just keep at it. And the Jets have not proven they can play that way for long stretches. But I mean, this is the playoffs, so we'll see. This is their biggest challenge is, can they keep it up for 4 straight wins, right? Or for a whole 7-game series.
Yeah, that is the challenge. It's gonna be very difficult for the Jets to hold that up. I get it, but at the same time, you can't go into a playoff game not expecting it to be a battle like that, especially in the 2-3 series. And when you see the series, the 1-4, that's where you look at it and go, okay, that should be more of a dominant winning sort of thing when you have the first seed versus the 4th. We're seeing that in a couple of series right now. Speaking of which, why don't we have a quick look at the actual playoff, the games situation, and then we'll talk about the league as a whole. But yeah, I mean, Winnipeg winning 2-0 here is a big deal, and they're not going to be able to do that in absolutely dominant fashion. They haven't been able to dominate Edmonton all year, so why would we think that the playoffs would be any easier? You shouldn't. But what is surprising is when you look at series like the Montreal-Toronto series, they've only played 1 game, and Montreal upset Toronto in Toronto. That is a big thing. It's a really big deal.
Can I sneak in one more comment about this series before we get to the league as a whole?
Mm-hmm.
Just you were talking about the Sportsnet announcers and the sort of homerism that comes there. And I've been a pretty big critic of them all season, especially Hanarian Singh, who, seems to get excited every time McDavid touches the puck and, kind of has very low tones whenever the Jets are doing anything exciting. I actually thought in the last game that he did show a little less bias than in previous ones. And I really liked on the game winner the way that he sung out Paul Stastny's name. It's not nearly as annoying when he's doing it for your team.
I mean, it still rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, you're just doing that because people have been complaining. But like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like it when he's not rubbing that dirt in your face, it's a lot more palatable. Now, mind you, I flip back and forth between the NHL official feed on the NHL app and the Sportsnet feed. So I was going back and forth, and I feel like last night the NBCSN feed was way more Edmonton biased than the Sportsnet feed. What's the deal with that? Anyway, I thought we were going to avoid talking about those guys, but it doesn't matter. Now you got me all riled up here, Carey. But
my apologies. I just wanted to defend them for once because I'm usually pretty harsh on that team.
Yeah, fair enough. And they're clearly Edmonton fans, right? They just are. And those are the games that they call the most. They've got the most experience with. They can't even pronounce some of the Jets players' names right because they can't be bothered to learn them. He did say Forbert right last night. He wasn't giving out the Forbort. It was Forbert, which was kind of nice to hear. I'm like, you corrected one, perfect. But then he started pronouncing Toninato, And I'm just like, what? Anyway, whatever.
Those who live in glass houses, right, Mark?
I guess, yeah, as I'm trying to pronounce this guy's name over here. Mind you, I don't have a pronunciation key or access to, how do you pronounce Antonician, Gerald Antonician, Antonician? No idea. But good comment, though. Hopefully Appleton keeps crashing to the net and gets in Smith's head, because I still believe he's right. I can't pronounce his last name, but I still believe he's right. Back to the playoff look here. What I want to talk about is Colorado being up 3-0 on St. Louis. How tough is it in St. Louis right now?
Oh, Claude Berube is not happy right now. It's not the hockey he expected that team to play. And conspiracy theory here, I was not impressed with the blue pants the Colorado Avalanche were sporting throughout the regular season, because it didn't really match. Then they got these jerseys that I saw that I was like, oh, wait, they do match. So then it's like, oh, perfect. Now here they go. These pants, these blue pants, I'm telling you, man, it's all about the blue pants for the Colorado Avalanche right now.
You have the weirdest conspiracy theories. I love it. Colorado up 3-0. That's the only series that is 3-0. Boston looking close, though, 3-1 against Washington, which would be, I would say, a little bit of an upset, but I think a lot of people expected that series to be a lot closer. I kind of didn't. Boston's been playing really good, and they're a hard team to play against. Washington is not the kind of team that's built to play against a team like Boston, so that's just a bad matchup for Washington.
They don't have the same coaching with Barry Trotz anymore.
Well, one would argue that Barry Trotz was part of the problem they were having, and they fixed it, but that led to their regular season success, I feel. But in the playoffs, it's a different game, and if they don't adjust their game, because Boston is a team that every year they're built to do well in the playoffs, and their struggle is getting to the playoffs. Once they're there, that style of hockey changes, and it just plays right into their hand. And it seems like the Winnipeg Jets have been the same thing this year, where they've been building us for the playoffs and building with that depth and all of that. The way that they've been doing it has been very playoff-esque, and making the playoffs became a struggle for us. But now that we're here, I feel like this style of hockey really, especially in this division, against anybody in this division, it plays to our advantage to play this style of hockey. So anything out here while we've got this graphic up with all the game scores and stuff, anything here stick out to anyone as being surprising or something noteworthy before we move on?
I think I'm good for now, boys. What do you think, Carey? What do you think, Zoner?
I don't necessarily have anything to contribute at this point.
Fair enough. I did think that last night the Nashville game was a very, very exciting game to watch. I kept my eye on it a little bit throughout the evening, and man, every time I looked over, there was another goal. It was just crazy. And then no goals through the first overtime period. It goes to double overtime before they finally win a game in Nashville. So, Carolina's playing some really good hockey right now, and everything that Nashville did, Carolina had an answer to right up into that overtime goal. So I think Nashville is in a lot of trouble if Carolina comes out a little angrier because they lost that double OT game last night. I think that could be a series that gets away from Nashville if they're not careful. They barely survived one in their own rink last night. So that's a series to watch. The biggest thing is the next game between the Avalanche and St. Louis. That's a big one to watch for me, because I called the 4-0 win for the Avalanche for the 4-0 sweep. That was what I went for. So I just kind of knew it was going to happen. Anybody else with any comments or thoughts or anything of that nature? Because I think we're getting to that time of day where we're going to say goodbye to everyone unless there's anything else. If you got something in the chat, we'll take it. If not, we're going to wrap up real quick here.
I just want to say in anticipation of tonight's Montreal-Toronto game, I think we're going to see Montreal go up 2-0 in this series. Yes.
I would love to see that. Why do you think that?
Montreal is a team that plays very emotional hockey. They tend to sort of rise and fall with the tides. And as brutal as that Jonathan Tavares injury was the other day, I think that was sort of dealt a major blow to the Leafs' confidence and to their sort of emotions. And I think that we're going to see a fired up, dangerous Canadiens team coming out tonight.
That is very fair. And speaking of, so that was an accident there. Perry tries to get out of the way of an awkwardly falling John Tavares, nails him in the head with his knee, and that ends his season, potentially his career, given the way that he reacted. It made me sick to my stomach when he was trying to figure out where he was and he fell back and the trainers had to catch him, and it was trainers from both teams went out there to take care of him.
Hey, Rob.
So that was rough. I don't know who you're yelling at there. Was that McKnight? Who are you yelling at there? Tourette's or?
No. More sirens out there.
Fair enough. You live in a great part of town. But Kadri. Let's talk about Kadri for a second, because that was not an accident. That is not his first offense. He was suspended 8 games for his hit to the head on Justin Falk. What do we think of that, gentlemen? Start with Zoner. You've been quiet a bit.
That one's a tough one for me. I don't think he was late. Well, he was late, but not too late. But he definitely was high. And 8 games is a lot in the playoffs, right? But I think he deserved to be kicked out. I think if they made it shorter to the point where he's still playing in the same series, it would have just been the goon fest, like the second he showed up again. So they had to make it long. But I'm just having some trouble. So first of all, yes, he deserved to be suspended. But I'm just having trouble contrasting that with the Tom Wilson incident in the regular season, right? Where it's 0 games for this and 8 games for that.
Well, here's the difference, and I don't like it, but this is how it works. They look at the offense and is it suspendable? Doesn't matter who's involved. Look at the play without any numbers or names on the jerseys. Is it a suspendable offense? If yes, you move to the next step. And they decided with Tom Wilson that particular thing was not suspendable, so they didn't suspend him at all. Had he been suspended, then you probably, if it was a suspendable offense in their eyes, then you look at, okay, it's Tom Wilson. He has a history. He's done this, and this. Give him X number of games, which is what happened to Kadri. That was a suspendable offense as far as the NHL was concerned. And now you look, after you decide, yes, it's suspendable, what is this guy's history? And he has a litany of history doing stupid things and being suspended for multiple games at a time. And this is a tie for his longest, I think. His longest suspension, because he's been suspended 8 games before. Do you remember when he cross-checked which Boston player was it? In the face?
Yeah. Who was that again?
Jake
DeBrusk.
And but then Toronto was like, all right, that's enough. And they're like, get out. And they just sent him away. And now he goes to another team and does the same thing. I think he's got a lot of potential, but he just keeps doing stupid things like that makes him very hard to like,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's sort of the situation. But I just, since you mentioned the parry on Tavares, which was purely accidental from every point of view, you can look at it. It was just an awkward hit. Sherratt hits him, and he just falls funny. That's a weird place to fall on the ice. It's not something you're anticipating if you're Corey Perry coming out of the zone. And, it's a very unfortunate situation. But that sort of stuff happens, unfortunately. There's with a game moving so fast, like hockey, fastest game on 2 feet, and it's just it's
an unfortunate situation for all parties.
Yeah.
You do, as much as I hate to say it, because I've never been a big fan, you have to feel bad for Corey Perry. You know, he was a wrong place, wrong time situation. I think he genuinely did his best to avoid it. And, you know, after the fact, he was forced to drop the gloves. You could see him mouthing the words, "I don't want to fight," but then threw his gloves down and basically just kept his hands at his head and tried not to take too much of a beating on the following play.
It's not like he isn't used to being in fights. Let's be real. He's a pest. Nobody really likes playing against him. He's like, I grew up a Montreal fan because, again, there was no Jets at the time. Please don't hate. But I grew up a Montreal fan, and, you know, I'm the kind of person, I don't like that kind of stuff on my team. Like, I don't want a Sean Avery. I don't want I don't even want a Brad Marchand on my team. Like, okay, the guy scores goals, but then he'll do some stupid crap that totally distracts the rest of the team, and it just, anyway, that kind of player is not a kind of player I want on my squad. And so normally I'm not a big fan of Perry either, but I do, like you said, I feel bad for the guy. It's an unfortunate situation, and it is what it is. But the Kadri thing, he meant to hit him. He hit him a little bit late and very high, definite hit to the head, not his first go round. I completely understand and support the 8-game suspension, and you're going to see next year we're going to see things sort of look different for Kadri. I think we'll see how that all pans out. Let's have a quick look at the chat again, because we got somebody joining us here, Philly Danger, which, by the way, beautiful name. Gentlemen, just jumped in. Any thoughts on getting the boys set up with some number 10 stickers for the homestead? Anybody got a...
I think it'd be a fitting tribute to Howard Chuck. But it feels like it'd mean more if the fans were there. You know, like maybe they're saving that for next year when the building is full. And
you better believe the very first game that they have fans in it, they're going to do some big thing for Ducky. For sure. Yeah.
It almost feels wrong to do it in an empty arena, you know? Like they already did that once in Phoenix, right? When they retired his number and there's nobody there. And nobody in Phoenix knew who he was. So
yeah, that was weird.
So like for a memorial sticker, like, yeah, it's a good idea, but let's wait till people are there and have a proper tribute.
Yeah. Fair enough. I agree. And I'm sorry you're jumping in so late here, Mr. Danger. Or is it Donger? Any fans of Brooklyn Nine-Nine here? No? Never mind. We'll leave that one go. Anyway, and he was looking for the home stand is what he was saying. So I get it. I get it now. Homestead. That was the word that for the homestead. Like just, I guess he just means our barn, which is
old home on the range. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I would love to see some sort of Ducky tribute, but I'm with Zoner. I think when fans are back in the building is the right time to do that. It'll mean so much more. So that's it for us today. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to my general co-host, Mr. Keith McKnight, Carrie, Zoner. Thank you for joining us. And we are out of here. We'll see you next time in the LZ.